everyone. Welcome to a Constructive Conversation, a Merit Canada presentation. I'm Jordan Bateman, Vice President Communications for the Independent Contractors and Businesses Association, British Columbia, and I am so thrilled to be joined by the President of Merit Nova Scotia, Mr. Paul Dubé.
Hi, Jordan. How are you?
Good. Paul, what are you doing out my way?
Well, we came in town for a great summit. It's the Construction Innovation Summit that ICBA put off the last few days. Mm-hmm. Great event, learned lots. I'm either frightened or excited about artificial intelligence. I'm not 100% sure yet.
Be both, I think is the message I took away from that conference. I was a little disappointed when the guy told us that there weren't going to be like magical droid C-3PO like robots building buildings. Apparently we still need people, which is good for us in construction.
It is.
But purpose-built robots, that was an interesting
Purpose-built, yes.
Purpose-built robots, like little Roombas.
Yeah, well I like the idea of actually having a robot open up your fridge, look at the contents, and then either generate some recipes with regards to what you have within your fridge or your refrigerator, and then maybe even prepare the meal, which would be great.
It would be great. I live
love that.
I live with 3 teenagers, so most of the time it'll look at it, see it's empty, and immediately call DoorDash and save itself the time. All right. Yeah. Well, it was a great event, and thank you for coming. We do appreciate it. It means a lot to us when Merit presidents arrive. It's exciting.
Yeah, it is.
Tell me about Nova Scotia. What's we're starting to see a little bit of a slowdown here in British Columbia. What's it like on your coast as far as housing and whatnot?
Yeah, there's no slowdown. Probably in 2021, our population exceeded 1 million people. So our policies with regards to immigration from outside the country, as well as attracting people to Nova Scotia, has produced phenomenal numbers in terms of growth, in terms of population. On the flip side, now that we don't have the supply of housing, we've created ourselves a nice little crisis in the housing industry. We keep on extenuating our growth in terms of population, but the supply is not there. I think the government's trying to do some things just of late to actually intervene and create more housing. But if we still need 40,000 units to be able to just manage barely the growth strategy that they have in place, which is to reach 2 million people by the year of 2060. And I think they're going to achieve that in probably 15 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. You know, it's funny because we were on a call with the Merit presidents, and we were talking about housing affordability. And, not to tell tales out of school, but a vet who's based in Winnipeg said not a huge issue in Winnipeg.
Yeah.
But I think the caveat is yet, because it wasn't an issue in Halifax a year ago.
Pandemic really flipped things for us. People found that they needed a home to be safe and secure. A lot of people from Ontario and other parts of the country saw solace in a nice kind of environment, good living, next to the ocean. That's our playground, and it just attracted a lot more interest. So yeah, we've got some issues, and we've also been attracting a lot more international students to all our universities out east, and they need a place to stay, and we want them to stay after they've done their education. So we need to do better, we need to do more, but the labor crunch coupled with increased interest rates and inflation, procurement of materials, it's all this molotov cocktail, so to speak, of working against you to be able to achieve some goals in terms of reducing that crisis that we have here in at least in Halifax, and even is growing beyond Halifax into the rural communities.
Hey, can I ask you a political question?
Sure can.
Because obviously the big thing happening across Canada right now is the debate on the carbon tax.
Ooh.
And I believe the Maritimes as a whole was granted an exemption on homes heated by heating oil.
Correct.
I imagine that is very welcome relief. I know that obviously we represent mechanical contractors, HVAC contractors who have a vested interest in putting as many heat pumps everywhere they can. How do you see that issue kind of unfolding there? And is it a sign that the affordability crisis really has gripped Atlantic Canada? Yeah,
it has. 40% of the homes in Nova Scotia are still fired up with oil furnaces. My home itself has got an oil furnace, and the rate for oil furnace or furnace oil has gone up from I think 95 cents when I first moved to Nova Scotia in 2020 to now $1.60.
Wow!
And that's steep. We've also put in heat pumps. We put mini splits into the house to try to reduce those costs. We're in a better position that we can afford that, but it's still a very expensive, it's an expensive endeavor to put that type of equipment into your home and swap out something that you've had for over 40 years, because most houses have been built back in the 70s. So yeah, it's carbon tax is also it's a big political issue. I just happened to be at the Pierre Poilievre rally in Windsor, Nova Scotia last week, and that was a big topic of discussion, because just the day before that is when the Liberal government backtracked and said, well, we're going to have a freeze on furnace oil carbon tax for until the next election, until after the next election.
Just re-elect us.
Curious.
Nudge, wink, wink. We won't tell you what happens.
Right.
Yeah. So it is a huge issue.
So it's a big issue.
Yeah.
Really is. Yeah.
Now, next week, you and I are meeting up in Ottawa with all the merit presidents, ICBA President Chris Gardner, ICBA Alberta, and then the merits across Canada, and board members. And we are meeting with MPs and various groups.
We are.
What's kind of your goal for next week? What are you hoping to impress upon the leaders in Ottawa? Yeah,
that's a great question. I think, from a housing perspective and immigration perspective, we need to get more youth into the trades. Chris Gardner, the president of ICBA, had an interesting stat that less than 2% of the immigration activity that's coming into Canada is going to construction. Like that's an issue. That's a challenge. We're doing our part as much as we can in Nova Scotia. We're partaking in 2 recruitment missions. One that's going to happen in another 2 weeks in the UK. And then we're going to go to Toronto and see if we can attract some interest to move out east through that. So I think from a political perspective, I think we're just encouraging the government and the opposition to really think about how do we increase investment into our infrastructures? How do we increase investment into bringing people to Canada? Especially, our focus is construction. Yep. How can we make sure that they're coming into the trades? And then do we have the supports in place to really make a dent on the housing crisis that we see across Canada, at least in certain parts of Canada, and certainly in my neck of the woods.
Yeah, I imagine it's a golden age if you have any ideas around housing affordability. The parties are literally wrestling each other trying to find a pathway back to that, especially in places like Halifax and Vancouver, near where I live. So you mentioned you're going to the UK. That is a great tack by is it led by the Nova Scotia government, and they're headed there for a number of trades?
Yeah, so for a number of years, the Nova Scotia government has really focused on recruitment of healthcare workers. So they've been to the Philippines, they've been to other parts of Asia, they've been through to French-speaking countries, they've been to a lot of different jurisdictions. One of the things that we had asked is that can we now shift into a new recruitment strategy specifically around construction? So in the UK, they have the largest construction conference called the London Builds. So we're going to attend that. Nova Scotia has a booth. We're going with job applications or job postings from our members to see if we can find carpenters, electricians, plumbers, laborers, whatever the case may be, that might be a good fit. So we're actually going to be doing the interviews with those that are based in the UK and see if we can entice them to come over. And then the same thing with Toronto. There's a large construction conference, and Nova Scotia will have a presence, and we'll be ambassadors for the province of Nova Scotia, as well as ambassadors for the construction industry.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a great idea, a great plan. Hopefully it works, and bring a few here, and they tell their friends and bring more. And
it's worth a try. At this point, we have to try, and we have to, think outside the box. And I think that's part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a company here in BC, IRL, and founded by a couple of Irish expats. So guess where they get a bunch of their labor from? So it does spread word of mouth, and it can become quite an attractive way to. Well, obviously, Halifax, beautiful. So I'm told. Haven't been there yet, but hopefully this year. Hopefully 2024. So that is great news. Now, one last question about Nova Scotia. We're about to kick off the 1,000th season of Curse of Oak Island. I've watched them all. I got to ask you about it, Paul. Is the treasure that we're going to find the friends we've made along the way? or is there something actually underground that can be pulled out of Oak Island?
Great question. When I first moved to Nova Scotia in 2019, I actually had a tour of Oak Island.
Oh, I'm jealous.
And I met the Laginas, and it was great to see the swamp. It was great to see the area that they call it, where the money pit is.
The triangle-shaped swamp, I believe, is the official term.
Yeah, the curse of Marty, right?
That's right.
But there's lots of interesting things I found there. Part of the problem with that project is sometimes they're running into artifact uncoveries that are protected by the indigenous culture, so we have to be respectful of that. But it seems like everything underneath the ground is shifted. It's an island. It's a very short distance from shore. There's actually a causeway that goes to the island, and it's they don't do tours as of the last couple of years, because I think they're getting closer to finding something. What that may be, hopefully it's an outstanding.
It's the Ark of the Covenant, I think.
Well,
I
wouldn't
that
that be
was one
something?
theory. Wouldn't that be something?
That'd be crazy.
Wouldn't that shut everyone up? That'd be great. That'd be great. Listen, it's probably the most high-profile use of excavation equipment in Nova Scotia.
We have members on site, so that's encouraging too. Yeah.
I got to get to Nova Scotia. I got to see this place.
Billy Gerhard. Billy Gerhard is Billy.
Is he a member?
He's a member of ours.
Shut up.
Yeah.
I'm fanboying out. Billy Gerhard. Okay, well, this is exciting for me. Probably not for the broad internet at large, but Curse of Oak Island is a great show. I don't care what anyone says.
I agree.
I enjoy it. Find all the ox shoes you want to find. Take them all to Carmen. He'll tell you what they are.
Well, you come to Halifax, we'll go to New Ross, and we'll visit. We'll visit Carmen.
I mentioned it to my wife last night.
Did you?
I said, the possibility, maybe Halifax. Would you like to go along? She's like, yes, absolutely. She's like, 1,000%. When are we going? I'm packing her bags. She's packing her bags. And I said, but here's the cost. I got to go see Oak Island for a day.
Right.
And she's like, I'll just skip that day then.
Guys date.
I know, exactly.
We'll take care of that.
Awesome. All right, well, thank you, Paul. Thanks for being here. Looking forward to seeing you next week in Ottawa. And stay in touch.
Will do. Thank you, Jordan.